Hey guys, good evening. Happy Thursday. Happy almost TGIF. I wanted to jump on really quickly tonight because I was having some thoughts last night and I kept thinking, gosh, this is something I'd like to share in a live video, but we got home late last night. Russ and I serve in a marriage ministry at our church. It's called Reengage. We did it like over 10 years ago right around the time that Davey was born, and then we got busy with kids, and we decided this past year that we really wanted to serve again. Hey y'all, hey Kim. Anyway, this was a thought that I was having last night while we were in our group with Reengage. So Reengage is a marriage ministry. It's for marriages in trouble, but also just for people wanting to strengthen their marriage. If you're familiar with Reengage, hit the like button. It is an awesome, fabulous ministry. So it's one of my favorite things I've done with our church. If you go to watermark.org, you can look up the Reengage ministry and you can hear testimonies of people's marriages who've been, through really hard times, or folks just who've had to overcome a lot. Anyway, that's my Reengage plug. It is my favorite marriage ministry, and it's nationwide now. So you might look, if you're curious, you might look and see if there's a Reengage ministry in your hometown. But that's not what I wanted to come and talk about tonight. I wanted to do like a free therapy moment, really from my own marriage, just something that I think has benefited me. And I wanted to talk about a lie that I used to believe that I think a lot of people really believe. So if you don't know, I used to be a licensed professional counselor. Marriage counseling was my specialty, and I loved it because I have a passion for healthy marriages, because I felt like when I first got married, I could have really used some good therapy. So I want to talk about one of the biggest lies that we tend to believe in our marriage, and here it is. It's the lie that this shouldn't be this hard, that a good marriage should not be so difficult. And I'm just curious if you've ever been through a season in your marriage and you've thought, okay, if I were really supposed to be with this person, it just shouldn't be this hard. Hit the like button so that I won't feel so lonely and like I'm the only person who's ever felt this way. This was probably one of the number one feelings I had during my first year of marriage. I went into marriage as a prideful person. Welcome to Becky Page, pretty prideful. And I think my husband and I thought we had done a lot of work, and then we got married. Thank you for the like buttons. We got married, and it was so hard, and we were both in our 30s, and I think what we were struck by was, wow, this is so much harder than we expected, and we really didn't think it would be this hard. So it was this very isolating feeling. I remember thinking, if I tell people how much trouble my marriage is in, I'm just gonna hear crickets. Like, nobody else is going through this. My marriage is harder than the average person's. So I want to talk about that for a minute, because now, after being married for this many years and doing a lot of counseling, but also just talking to a lot of friends, here's the truth. Healthy marriages have conflict. I remember having some friends, various friends through the years, who would kind of portray their marriage as if there was never any conflict. And I remember feeling really insecure around them, because for me, I wanted to talk about the conflict, and I wanted to feel like I wasn't the only person being vulnerable. And I will always remember one friend that just said, I just feel like this is a big slumber party. And I thought, hell, I do not feel like this is a slumber party. What's wrong with me? What I realize now is that a lot of people aren't comfortable. They're not used to a community where they can be vulnerable and authentic, or just real with someone. And that the absence of conflict does not mean that that's a healthy situation. Although I think most of us come to the table going, hey, my goal is to have as little conflict as possible. And trust me, that's me. I do not like conflict. So when conflict happened in my marriage, my first thought was, oh gosh, what have we done? Like this, we've messed up somehow. Somehow I must have married the wrong person. So healthy relationships have conflicts. And here's the other part. Healthy marriages are really hard. So you have to go to battle with that lie that a good marriage shouldn't be this hard. And you literally have to turn that around and remind yourself, a good marriage is truly hard. In fact, any good relationship is going to have struggles. and is going to take a lot of work. When you see a marriage that you genuinely admire, it's because a lot of work has gone into it. So John 16:33 says, "In this world you will have troubles, but take heart, for I've overcome the world." And I think that we tend to see that as like an us versus them, like I'm going to have trials with people outside of a close relationship with me. But honestly, trials in marriage are one of the biggest ways that God refines us or chips away at our flesh. So I think a lot of us got married with this idea that marriage is meant to make me happy. And why wouldn't we think that? Because that's what our culture teaches us is, you find the right person, they make you happy. In fact, we say all the time to people, well, if he makes you happy, then that's all that really matters. And the truth is that little saying, like, if they make you happy, then it must be right. That's going to last about a hot minute in a healthy marriage, because marriage is meant to refine you, but not to be the source of your happiness. So that's another tack on of like one of the big lies that I would hear in counseling was, well, she just doesn't make me happy anymore. Well, she was never meant to. That's not her job. You did not marry the God of the universe. It is his job to bring you happiness and joy, especially the kind that can't be taken away, the kind that's built on a firm foundation and can't be stolen from you ever. But your spouse is not God. They cannot make you happy. By the way, just a little therapist piece, nobody makes you happy. Your happiness is your choice. You choose to be happy, no one gives you a feeling. You get to choose your own feelings. You get to choose how to respond to a situation. So if I'm struggling with happiness and joy, the biggest place for me to look is inward and go, what's going on with me right now? But I'm going to bring it back around. Okay, so number one is that the biggest lie is if you believe marriage just shouldn't be this hard. But number two, because I wrote out some points, was you have to fight lies with the truth. And I would say scripture. A lot of you watching scripture might not be a place that you go for truth, but one of the biggest areas that you have to get truthful about are your character defects. And that was one of the hardest areas for me, was getting real about what my character defects were. So a great quote that I love is, "I am my biggest problem." And I can't tell you how long it took me to learn this, and my husband deserves so many awards for being patient, because when we got married, I really thought that he was getting like a fabulous deal. I'm just being real. I was so prideful. I am so prideful. God's constant. That's going to be like my area of struggle on this side of eternity is pride and self-centeredness. Anyway, I am my biggest problem. That delivers me from so many issues. So the biggest ways that I've contributed to strife in my own areas, in my own marriage, has been through focusing on my spouse's character defects instead of my own. So you might be asking then, this is point number 3, how do you find out what your character defects are? Most likely, if you're really going to take an honest look at yourself, you probably already know your character defects, right? Very often though, if you find that you truly can't define those for yourself, then it's probably been a topic that has already come up in conflict with your spouse. So because I'm prideful, because that is one of my big character defects, it's just unfortunately a mark of my personality, it took a long time for me to get on board with something that continued to come up as a point of conflict in my marriage, and that was that my husband would say, "You are overly critical. Like, you are so quick to jump on me and criticize me." And I would always think, "I'm not criticizing you, I'm helping you." Thanks, Aaron. I would think, hey buddy, I was not criticizing you. I was showing you that you really should have turned there. And why didn't you turn? That was the right turn. Or I was helping you know how best to discipline our children. Or, whatever it was. I was so full of pride, and am so full of pride, that I would offer criticism thinking that it was helpful to him. When in fact, it was, of course, tearing him down. Nobody likes to be criticized. So, for me, pride, self-centeredness or ego, and being overly critical. Anytime my husband brings up one of those things, What I've learned to do, and I still struggle with this, but at least it's kind of like in my brain now, is to do something called hug the cactus. Okay? What I mean by that is you take something that's painful and you pull it to you. And you really take it on and look at it and go, listen, could this be true? Am I an overly critical person? Now, I love my dad. I've been close with, I've just been one of my dad's biggest fans for my whole life, but he and I are built so similarly in this. And I think that we often think that criticism is meant to help strengthen someone or make them better. But when I started to try that on, like, hey, I thought that my dad was overly critical of me. When my husband would bring that up, I'd go, that's not me. And then I'd think back to situations I'd have with my dad, and I'd be like, wait, that is me. I am like that. And I dislike it when other people are critical of me. So why am I now offering criticism so much in my marriage? So I had to hug the cactus. I had to kind of embrace that, try it on, and go, I really think this is one of my character defects. By the way, also 5 years of 12-step work. Hug the cactus is one way to find out your character defects. Another is to find a trusted friend, someone outside of your marriage that really cares about you, really knows you, and isn't afraid to tell you the truth, and say, what are some things in me that you see that continually trip me up, either in my spiritual walk or in my relationship with others? And again, try it on, see how it feels, but you're going to have to embrace things that hurt. Hug the cactus. Okay, number 4, and I promise I only have 2 more points. The more work you've done around owning your character defects, the easier it becomes to pursue reconciliation and to become what I call unoffendable. So this is huge. Pursuing reconciliation, you can have healthy conflict, but it isn't until you really learn how to do reconciliation really well that conflict actually becomes a source of strength to your marriage. When I say conflict, I'm not just talking about fighting. Anybody can fight. Everybody has conflict. The best relationships are ones that manage conflict by always applying reconciliation. And reconciliation is not saying I'm sorry. I'll get to that in just a second. But let me give you an example of what I mean. If I'm fighting with my spouse and he comes back to me and says something like, maybe I'm accusing him of being selfish, and he says, that's probably on point because I can be really selfish. And if he just owns that, whoa, that throws us both off the defense. And then it becomes something when he owns his weaknesses or his sin patterns or character defects or whatever you want to call them and shows them to me and admits these things, suddenly it pulls me back and it just allows me to go, wow, we're on the same team. Okay, well, I want to confess my stuff too, because you're my partner. I want to work on this together. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Rach. It changes the whole dynamic when you learn to reconcile. So reconciliation is one, offering, even if you're the only one, even if your spouse doesn't offer to do this back, offering up a confession. You know what? I am being defensive right now, or I am being really prideful, or I am really struggling with selfishness today. There's something about that throws the other person off the defense and allows you to bond. Even if that other person does not come back and ask for forgiveness or own their own stuff, you will begin to create a pattern of safety in your marriage. And these are the strongest marriages, and it takes practice. And you're probably gonna suck for a little bit, so you gotta be okay with that. Okay, here's number 5, and that's my last point. And I hope I'm making sense because this has all been jumbled around in my brain for the past 24 hours. But real reconciliation is not the absence of conflict. Some of you guys hate conflict so much that you're never allowing yourself to get to the part of reconciliation. And so what's happening is you're not peacemaking, you're peace faking. And I'll tell you, I don't know how old you are or where you are in your marriage, but you can only peace fake for so long until you hit a place of no return, until you will feel so much resentment towards your spouse because you've never gotten to the point to actually reconcile. But reconciliation is at the heart of every strong relationship, whether it's your friend, hey Suzanne, whether it's your friend or your spouse or your coworker, your business partner, whoever, your parents. Oh my gosh, your parents, because that's where we all learn to start practicing it before marriage. So real reconciliation looks like not "I'm sorry." It looks like this: hey, can I talk to you for a minute? I need your forgiveness in this area. For me, it's typically, I really need you to forgive me for being so prideful when I said or did XYZ. That puts me in a place of neediness and vulnerability. And even if that person does not offer you forgiveness, you have done what we call, you've kept your side of the street clean. You've obeyed God, you have confessed, and you've asked forgiveness. The rest is up to God and that person, whether it's your spouse or someone else. But when you keep your side of the street clean and you pursue real reconciliation, which is not getting the other person to follow suit and maybe ask forgiveness. I asked for forgiveness. You haven't asked me for forgiveness. Trust me, that's been a line that I've used many times. Russ has used it too. Hey, you didn't ask for forgiveness. But he who is first to seek and pursue forgiveness wins. If you can keep that in your heart, you know? Plus, it's amazing how much you'll be drawn to each other. When you've got a spouse that is humble and able to confess their character defects and ask for forgiveness, oh my gosh, there's nothing more attractive. Nothing more attractive. And this is where people miss out on real chemistry. Real chemistry does not have to do with how sexually attracted I am to you or how interesting you are to me anymore. It really is about, man, you let me see, one, that you're pursuing God in examining your own life, but two, that you love me enough to seek my forgiveness. I mean, forget it. That's the most attractive thing ever. So I hope this has made sense. These thoughts are like in my head a lot, and I tend to think that people know them, but I'm realizing more and more, and especially just because of the culture we're in, that we're just not really teaching each other or helping each other learn how to reconcile well, how to be unoffendable, how to give up our rights, to put other people first, and to love them well, right? Thanks for the love, y'all. And I'll just go ahead and say, I know not everyone watching this is a believer in Christ, but I'll tell you the truth. My marriage is strong today, not just because of the hard work I've put in hard work, but it's strong because I am so desperate for Jesus. And he is the only one that has the power to pursue forgiveness, pursue love, and to pursue my spouse in the way that I want to. He does it through me. So I'm a hot mess without him, and he's the heart of why I wanted to share this tonight. And I wish you guys a great night. Thanks, Rach. Gypsy Wagon, Dallas. You should come here. Thank you, Amy. I wish you guys all the best. Thanks, Chelsea. Aw, thanks, Dink. It's so good to see you. I love y'all and would love to hear in the comments later any tips or things that you've learned about marriage that have kept your marriage going. I feel like we've got to encourage each other against all the lies that are out there today. So, have a great night, guys.